Welcome to Music Career Therapy, brought to you by ArtistManagers.io. Whether you're just starting out or looking for new ways to grow your existing career, thanks for joining us on Music Career Therapy. Welcome to Music Career Therapy. Our guest today is Dave Rose, founder of artist management company Deep South Entertainment. He's worked with a diverse range of artists, including Bruce Hornsby, Lit, SR71, Stryper, Lainey Wilson, Little Feat, and more. He has also been a touring artist, a record label head, a music venue owner, and a festival promoter, among other things. Welcome, Dave. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we've known each other a long time, and you were the first person to give me a record deal, I think. So, thanks for that.
Sure. I probably got a copy of that record deal from your manager at the time. I don't think I knew what a record deal was, but yeah, we were the first.
Yeah, we didn't know anything back then. So, you've been running Deep South Entertainment for a while. Could you just give us an overview of what you do there and what Deep South is all about?
Sure. Deep South Entertainment is an artist management company. We manage about 10 artists, and we've had a very diverse roster over the years. We were founded in 1995 by myself and Andy Martin and Amy Cox. We are also unique in that we are talent buyers and festival producers in North Carolina. So we're based in Raleigh, North Carolina, but we have a presence in Nashville as well. We sort of split our time between the two. Our artist management is a little more Nashville-based, sort of a combination of Nashville and Raleigh. But yet in Raleigh, we are sort of the go-to festival producers and talent buyers. So we get to see lots of different sides of the music business from that. It's been really interesting in how those two worlds really work together. Well,
can you give us an example of some of the artists you've worked with or are working with right now?
Yeah, so our roster over the years has included acts like Bruce Hornsby and Little Feat, Parmalee, Lit, Lainey Wilson, Marcy Playground. And we tend to, our current roster at the moment, one of our flagship acts is Marcy Playground, and we've been with them from the beginning and probably get into that story a little bit. And Stryper, the 80s hair band. We have an artist that we've been with for 20 years that we just love, and Vienna Tang. She's a singer-songwriter, piano player, probably not a household name in a lot of communities, but what I love about her is she can go into any city in America and sell out your local theater. She's got a very passionate, hardcore fan base that just follows her everywhere. She's got a long, long career. So yeah, we've got a very diverse roster at the moment and always have. It's really cool.
Was that something you did by design, having such a diverse roster? And is that common in management?
No, I don't think it's common. And it was not by design either. You know, I think it comes from, I've thought about this a lot. I think it really roots from the fact that I don't have just one style of music in my playlist. I like a lot of different music. And the business of a lot of different types of music fascinates me because they all operate very differently. And it's neat to me to be able to take maybe there's something that works well in the heavy metal world. And let's go try that over here in contemporary Christian music and see if that works. Or let's take something that works in the singer-songwriter world, by and large, and let's see if it works in country music. And sort of because genres tend to have formulas of how you break an artist, how you get a song successful, how you do business. Genres have certain ways of doing it. And I love testing things from other genres and seeing if they'll work in this genre. And then if we're truly the out of the box, to use that cliche, management company in the sense that we get to see, there's definitely some genres we don't work in, but we get to see a lot of different things and how they work in different genres. So no, it wasn't by design. I think most management companies, I can't say most my size, mid-level management companies probably focus on a genre. And it's typically because they initially got started with a genre, got successful in that genre, and it kind of expanded from there. we were fortunate enough to kind of get successful in multiple genres early on. And so we've kind of expanded from there. I love that I get to listen to a lot of different music. I mean, I really do. As a consumer, I like classic rock. I like singer-songwriter. I like a lot of different styles of music. And I love that my days are filled with listening to a lot of different kinds of music. I don't know that my personality and my kind of brain, I don't know that I could listen to only country music all day. I could not listen to only hard rock all day. There's no genre I love so much that I want to listen to it all the time. So I love that I get to sort of hear all these different sounds throughout my day.
That's awesome. How did you first get started in management?
Well, it started by me playing in a band or several bands. Even worse, man. Here's the way it really started. It started with me finding a bunch of college friends when I was in college. They were in a band. They had a band. And I just started asking them, can I help? I just thought it was cool to hang around with a band. I just wanted to be hanging around with a band. I didn't know. I just liked music. But I was not playing. I was not doing anything. And they said, this college band said, yeah, we could use some help. We need some gigs. Could you book us some gigs? I didn't know how to book a gig, but I started calling places and got them about 20 gigs. Well, about 2 weeks before the first gig, they called me and they said, we're going to need to cancel our shows because our bass player has quit and he's moving to like Colorado, like next week. I thought about it. I said, that's not going to happen. I worked really hard to get these 20 gigs, and I've been to your all's practices. It does not look that hard to play bass. Like, here's what's going to happen. You, and I'm pointing to the guitar player here, you are going to spend the next 2 weeks with me in your basement, and you're going to teach me the bass parts to these songs that you play. And we're going to go out and we're going to do these 20 shows, and we're going to come back, and then you can audition bass players. And that's what's going to, and they were kind of laughing at me, rightfully. They were like, yeah, that's not really how it works. You don't kind of learn to play bass in 2 weeks. And that's what we're going to do. and that's what we did. And they taught me, I mean, we were the opening act on a bunch of stuff. So we only had like 10 songs. And sure enough, I did a crash course in playing bass in 2 weeks. And I went out and toured with this band for 20 shows. And at the end of it, they were kind of like, well, we don't really feel like auditioning players. You picked it up pretty fast. Why don't you just keep playing in the band? So I did. I kept that. That really should have been my first indication that I was not in this to be a musician. I was business. I picked up the bass so that we didn't cancel shows. If there was ever a wrong reason to pick up an instrument, that was it. And I went out and I ended up playing in bands for the next 10 years. But moving into the mid 90s, early 90s, when we kind of first met, I was starting to learn more about kind of success. And, record deals were a part of that. Getting a record deal was a big thing, and especially in the early to mid 90s. And I was having no success, which should not have been a surprise to me, getting my band a record deal. So I thought, how about I just start a record label, which I also didn't know how to do. But I thought if I just started a record label, then maybe if I surrounded my band with other successful bands, maybe my band would get a record deal. And so we did that. We started putting out compilations, and, the very first one, I mean, this should have been a second big, huge indication. The first couple of records I put out, almost everyone, yourself included, became successful except my band. and so I'm looking around at these acts like Five for Fighting at Marcy Playground and Day Room, your band, and Butch Walker and Athenaeum, and they're all selling out rooms and they're getting record deals and they're, on the radio, and here I am not. And it was really around that time that I said, I'm much better at selling this music than making it. I should do that. And I really started to focus on, but the way I got into management was Napster. Napster was the turning point for me. We were an indie record label in 95. We started in 95, put out some records. Napster came along around 98. Yeah. And I was really paying attention to that. And I remember even meeting someone from Napster. It was one of the early, maybe not the founders. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I had a meeting with them. We had a meeting with them, and they were telling me their model of Napster. I thought, wow. And their idea in the beginning, rightfully so, was to get a bunch of indie labels involved and excited, and then therefore maybe the majors would get involved. And they had all these plans and whatever. But in the end, my takeaway was, you're about to take all this music I've put out and give it away for free. Mm-hmm. I better think of something else to do. So I started going to some of the acts that were on our label, and we started saying, hey, what do you think about, instead of being on our label, why don't we manage you and try to get you on a bigger label? And we did that with a couple of acts, and it worked. And from 98 to 2000, we transitioned into a management company as a result of that.
So who was your first client?
Our very first management client was a band called Collapsus that signed to Universal. Right along that same time was SR-71, which got signed to RCA and had a massive modern rock hit called Miss Right Now. And those are our first two clients. And those were both on compilations. Those were both featured on compilations. And they just happened to be two that didn't have a manager. And we started working with them and got them record deals. And so when you get your first two clients record deals in the mid to late 90s, that's a pretty good start, especially being from Raleigh, North Carolina, where it wasn't really the music capital of the world at the time. So yeah, that's how we got our first start. And because of the success of those, we came in contact with folks like Bruce Hornsby and Little Feat and kind of grew up from there.
You had told me a story about how you started working with Bruce Hornsby that I seem to remember was kind of an unusual moment. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. We started working, we were having great success with SR-71 at RCA Records. And when you have success with an act at a record label, you spend a lot of time with that record label. And so we were spending a lot of time with the people, the A&R team, the executives, the radio team at RCA. Bruce had been at that label for a long time. And I'm taking nothing away from the people that worked him or were involved with him. But, you know, when you've been at a label a long time, sometimes you don't always get the attention of a new act. So Bruce was pretty smart in that he decided, if I align myself with these managers who are getting a lot of attention right now at this label, maybe I would get similar attention. And that was a smart move. And so that sort of was the start of, he saw, oh, wow, my record label's time is being consumed largely by these managers that have, we actually had two acts on RCA at the time. One of them ended up hitting, the other one did not. But either way, we had a lot of their resources coming our way. And so that sort of led to conversations with Bruce. And that was Bruce's, he's an icon in this business. And I probably learned as much from him as I hope he did from me during our time together. He's an incredibly smart person. And to his credit, exactly what we just talked about. He saw that what was going on at his label and decided to align himself with who was getting the attention and resources at the time. And I tell that to artists all the time when I coach them and talk to them about, a lot of artists get record deals, maybe an independent record deal, or maybe they get a booking agent, or they get someone on their team, and then they feel like they need a manager, and they say, and they might need a manager at that point. But the question always becomes, how do I get the right manager? My advice is always go to the people on your team and ask them who they like working with. I mean, if you have a publicist and a publicist is the only person on your team, and that publicist is talking to some other manager 5 times a day about a bunch of other clients they're working together with, you should be talking to that manager. That's the manager you want, is the one that's already talking to the publicist 5 times a day. Or if you've got a booking agent and that booking agent is booking you shows and they have other clients and they have a manager that they talk to 5 times a day about their other clients, you should try to get in with that manager, because that's the manager that has their attention right now. That's who you want to be with. So when you're looking for a manager, you sort of want a manager that's aligned with kind of the people you already have surrounded in your life currently.
And it seems like also what you're talking about is laddering up with other people as your network. Because I've seen a lot of artists who just want to go straight to, here's my music, do you want to manage me?
Right.
And it's not really how it works. And
not at all how it works.
Can you explain other ways that it does work? Because I know that you coach a lot of artists and you're doing massive numbers now on TikTok, just telling people about how the music business really works. Can you explain kind of where a new artist should be focusing their attention when they want to try and bring their career up to the level where they get management?
Yeah, I use this description a lot. When you go to an award show and you hear about Song of the Year and 12 people walk on stage, 12 songwriters for Song of the Year. You're looking at that and you're going, did it really take 12 people to write this song? Like, seriously? And the answer is no, it probably didn't. It probably took about 2 people or maybe 3 people. But what it did take is the team of 12 people to make that song a success like it was. So when I talk to an artist about like growing your career, you should be looking at it kind of like that. What can I do to broaden my network as much as possible? Co-writing is a great way, creating collaborations with other artists, whether it be features or anything, but eventually you get this bigger team around you. You know, let's just take co-writing, for example. If you start co-writing with a bunch of people and you're having great sessions, those people have teams, or at least they have friends who are going to be talking about you. So it just gets more people talking about you to a wider circle of people. You know, Nashville has built an entire city off the premise of it takes a village to break a song. There's, you know, you look at a big, I don't know, a Luke Bryan hit or any big country song, there's a dozen companies behind that and probably close to 100 people behind that song. You know, from the outside world, you look in, you think, oh, Luke Bryan decided to just record this song and then boom, it went number 1. Wow, that's pretty cool for him. I wish I could do that. Maybe I should write a better song. There's 100 people involved in that.
Wow. What do all those 100 people do?
It's everything. It's publishing, it's publicity, it's records, it's promotions, it's radio, it is accounting, it is touring. It is all the things that make people curious about music. So it's everything from the tour bus driver to the booking agent to the radio promotion person. I don't know. The beauty about the music business to me, Michael, is that no matter what example or rule or idea or theory I have, there is someone who has done the exact opposite of that and been successful. I love that about the music business. There are no rules, but there are playbooks that help you that help improve your odds. So when you I'm sure there are examples of someone who just wrote a song in their bedroom and released it and it went huge. Those are rare. It can happen. And God bless you if that happened to you. But for the most part, it takes a team. It takes several writers to create the best song, several publishers to help push and exploit that music, several radio people to help move if radio is your thing, or several label people to help marketing in that, or several publicists that are helping get the word out in different places. Not to mention, I mean, if you think about this on the simplest terms, just posting. Let's say you get in your bedroom, you write a song and you release it and you post about it. You and your friends now know about this song. But let's suppose, for the sake of argument, you co-wrote that song with 2 other people. So there's now 3 people involved. And let's say even they didn't contribute that much to the song, the actual song, but they have lots and lots of followers. They also want that song to succeed. So now you're posting about that song, but also they're posting about that song. And then they have hundreds and hundreds of friends that want them to succeed, and they're posting about that song. Sometimes just broadening your network alone is what it takes to get the word out on a song. Now multiply that by hundreds of people, and that's how you get a number one song.
That makes a pretty hefty amount of sense. One of the things that I know that you guys also do, which is, as you mentioned earlier, is unique. You have booked a lot of different things. You've owned a small venue in Raleigh, and you've booked a lot of different kinds of festivals and events. What kind of advice can you offer to artists who want to get booked?
Yeah, so I booked the North Carolina State Fair, and I've owned a music venue for 12 years. So I'm going to separate festivals and venues. The booking process for the two is very different, and the goals of those two is very different. For festivals, let me tell you one thing they have in common. One thing they have in common: you have 60 seconds to make an impression. So there's no time to sell your act on wherever you're trying to book yourself. You need, with one click, to be able to give them 60 seconds worth of you and your best. And in that 60 seconds, they need to be able to hear you. They need to know your reach. They need to know who likes you. So quotable things, your followers, your numbers, your stats, your music. They cannot go to 7 different links to find you and look at you and research you. You're not going to get booked if that happens. Some people use an EPK, some use a sizzle reel, but whatever it is, you need one click, one link, and in 60 seconds or less, they should know what you are. That's across whatever. Festivals. Let's talk about festivals. Festivals are typically a built-in audience. Their audience is usually there because of the headliners. Sometimes it's there just because of the style of music. A lot of bluegrass festivals, people come just because they love bluegrass music. But usually you, as an opener or as a support act, you're not the draw. So what's important to a festival is that you fit stylistically into their programming. So when you go to a festival to try to book yourself into that festival, that needs to be your number one thought. Do I fit stylistically into this festival programming? And if you do everything you can to show that. If you've toured with acts that are playing that festival, that's good to know. And letting them hear your music and just whatever you can do to say, I fit stylistically. Venues are a totally opposite thing. Venues don't care if you fit or not. Now, wait a second. I'm going to talk about music venues, not menu venues that I like to call them, like where there's sort of a built-in restaurant crowd. We're going to not talk about those for a second. We're talking about traditional music venues where people buy a ticket and they come. Now, music venues, they want to know, can you put butts in seats? That's it. My favorite story of owning a venue, I didn't even book my own venue. I had someone that managed it and booked it. But I was standing outside my venue one day, and a kid comes up to me and he goes, man, I have always wanted to play your room. I live about 30 miles outside of town. I have a band, and we play once a month in my barn in my backyard. And I have 100 friends. My venue was 100 capacity. It was a small live music room. I have 100 friends that come to my barn, and they drink me dry every first Friday. And I just am ready to get them out of my barn. And I've always wanted to play here. I want to know, how do I book myself into your room? And I said, wait a second. Like, you mean to tell me you've got 100 people that'll show up, pay money, and drink a lot? He said, yeah, I can guarantee you I'll pack this place. I said, pull out your calendar. Let's pick a date right now. This is the first show I had ever booked in there. I didn't even really know how to book a show. We secured a date, firmed it all up. And after we settled on the date, I said, I probably should have asked you this before I booked you, but are you guys any good? He was so honest. He was so nice. He goes, not really. I mean, we're okay. We're trying. He showed up on that show that we booked, and he was 100% accurate. They were very average. He brought 100 people. They spent it was the biggest night of our month. They spent more money than any show we had. And we booked that band every few months for the remaining time we were open. And they got better over time. But point being, if I had my manager hat on or my festival hat on, I would not have booked that band. But I put my venue hat on, which cares about something different than what a manager or a festival cares about. And just know that when you're going to book a venue, you got to convince them. And I don't care if it's like, it could be something as simple as my cousin lives in your city and he's in a fraternity and he'll bring a bunch of friends out to see me. That is a better opening line than I went to Berkeley and we had like the biggest producer in the world do our album. Because when I get emails as a venue owner that say we had this huge big time producer do our album and all of us went to Berkeley or the School of Miami Music, I don't care. I don't care about any of that as a venue owner. I care, can you bring people? But when they say, hey, I used to live in your town and all my friends have been asking when am I coming back to town and can I play there? That's the kind of stuff you need to get across. And as proof with me, we don't really care if you're good or not. Sadly. I mean, ultimately we care.
Yeah. I got similar advice with Dayroom, my band. And like I was working for the Flagpole in Athens, Georgia, which was the media rag that you would be able to, and they're still open. But the editor in chief, I was asking him, I said, I'm starting a band up. I want to figure out how do I get booked? Like, what do we do? And he said, all the venues care about is can you sell beer?
Yeah.
He said, if you make yourself a band that sells the beer, you will get asked back. And we made that a mantra for our first 2 years as a band. We wrote some horrible songs, but they were all about drinking.
Yeah, you didn't. Y'all had great songs.
You didn't hear the first.
But you were right, man. I mean, and you and I came up, and it's still that way. Selling the alcohol will make sure you get booked back. One thing our band did at every show, I don't know if you remember this, but at every show, we rotated whose birthday it was at that show. Just hey, it's our drummer's birthday today. Y'all buy a big round of shots. Unless we just did that every show, an extra $100 to the bar, and somebody would always buy the round of shots, and we were all in the business of selling it.
And that is show business too.
It's totally. I'm embarrassed to even talk about that, but that's the reality of how it was and how it is.
It's funny though how many bands launch successful careers out of just smoke and mirrors show business. I just listened to the biography by Bono, and he was talking how they played the Irish National Stadium, which is basically just a basketball court back then in the 80s or something. Mm-hmm. But they sent all this info out to people in London, and they're like, "Oh, they're playing the National," and that was how they got a record deal. They just got all their friends to show up.
I mean, I think Paul McGuinness, who managed them, was one of he had some great ideas. They all did.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pre-Paul McGuinness too, I think. That was
was it?
Yeah, that was what got them just visible. So or it might have even been against Paul's advice.
Maybe so. Yeah.
So couple last questions here. So you've been giving a lot of advice to artists, and I know you work with artists from all kinds of levels. Nearly every artist wants to have a manager. What do you think it takes to find a manager beyond just the networking piece of following the team? Like, what are some of the other things that can put an artist in the right place so that they can get their team built?
That's a complicated question, but I'll give you the simple answer. It's all about my dentist. I'll tell you what I mean. In the history, and I'm again, back to me, there's always exceptions to the rules, but in the history of music, I doubt there is ever an artist who has gone on to become hugely successful who found their manager by initially introducing themselves to that manager. Managers typically need to hear about an artist from about a dozen different sources before they're really, really interested. So I always tell artists, like when you have friends who say, "What can I do to help?" Your answer should be, talk about me a lot to everybody you know, because the artists that I've signed and the artists that most of my peers and colleagues have signed typically hear about the artist from a lot of sources. And when I've heard, when my dentist is telling me about an artist, he doesn't have any skin in the game. He just likes that music. When he hears that I'm in the music business, oh, you know what? I went out to this venue the other night and I heard this artist and I want to tell you about them. Now, that means a lot to me. When my person that cuts my hair or my insurance agent or whoever, when my neighbors who are not in the music business just want to tell me about the best music they've heard. Now, if I'm hearing about that from a dozen different sources, that's when I'm really interested in signing someone, because that's ultimately showing me that this is organically growing. You're doing a great job musically because people are telling people about your music without being prompted. If you come to me, I don't care if you have the best sales pitch in the world. If the first time I'm hearing about you is from you, you're probably not ready. I mean, I'm sorry. You're just probably not. You probably will be, and you could be, but I listen. I'm in the business of listening to people talk about music. So when I'm not hearing about you from other sources, it's probably just not quite there yet. It might be there. I mean, here's a great story. Let me tell you about one of the artists that I started managing. I had 2 or 3 just random people in town tell me about this girl who they really liked. She was writing some songs. One night she got a gig playing at a big amphitheater. She was opening for somebody. That night, I got about 6 different calls from 6 different people at that show who said, you got it. I mean, one person even held their phone up, said, you got to hear this girl. To me, that's everything I needed to know. I can say I probably never had that happen before. 6 people call me from a show and say, you got to hear this girl. So we ended up signing her, took her to Nashville, had her meet with one of the top booking agents in Nashville. She's doing her thing. She's whatever, and she's playing out at little places here and there. Well, sure enough, so she goes and meets with the top head of this agency. He says, let me get to know you. Let me think about it. You never get signed on the spot, by the way, in case anybody's ever wondering. You don't get signed on the spot. They got to court you for a little while. We're in the courting phase with this booking agency. They go on, and she's playing around town. One day, this guy's insurance agent happens to pop into a little restaurant that she's playing and hears her. And he goes back and tells his friend, the booking agent, about her. And that's how we got signed to that booking agent. In the same way I signed her. The way it typically works to find a manager or anyone of that caliber is get other people talking about you. Truthfully, the way to do that is to write undeniably brilliant music.
Yep.
It all, in the end, comes down to the music, unfortunately, or fortunately.
I'll call it fortunately, I think.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, too, I've heard that from a lot of different angles. When I was in Atlanta for a little while after my band broke up, I was hanging out with John Mayer at the studio, and he was constantly talking about his strategies of how to get into the music business, and he'd already had a bit of success. He was getting courted by labels, and he just said, you know what, whenever you hang out with a music person who's a label guy or A&R or whatever, never talk about music. Like, just don't do it, especially not yourself. Just, right. He's like, I pulled out Tetris on my phone and we'd be playing video games or whatever. It's all about the hang and making sure that you're somebody that people would want to actually work with.
Right.
So that's another piece of it, but it's so important to actually have the goods that other people can validate for you to reach a successful spot.
That's right.
What's the craziest experience you've had managing artists or an artist?
So I manage the band Stryper, and the singer of the band Stryper is Michael Sweet. It's interesting because the first concert I ever went to was Stryper, so that's pretty cool. But the first album I ever purchased was the band Boston. That first Boston record was so key to me. Fast forward, I'm managing Stryper. The singer for Boston dies in 2000. 6. And I called, and I know that my singer, Michael Sweet of Stryper, had always been a fan of them. And I called him and told him, and I said, hey, there's this message board on the Boston website where people are paying condolences. You should go on there and just share what he's meant to you. And he did. And the founder of Boston saw that post and went out and purchased every Stryper record and like just consumed them completely. And decided he wanted to do a tribute show to the original singer of Boston. And he did it in Boston at the big amphitheater there at the Bank of America Pavilion. And he asked Michael Sweet of Stryper to sing the songs. And that was mind-blowing. One, in that getting that call from the founder of Boston to talk about this was insane. But then I get to the show. It's just crazy in that you take this artist who has revered Boston his whole life and really was inspirational in so many ways to him. And he's now going to sing these songs in Boston to a Boston crowd who is highly charged from the death of their favorite singer right now. And you're just a nervous wreck as a manager. You're like, this has all the makings of a disaster in every way. And so my guy comes out. Here's how, and I was nervous too. I sort of didn't even go backstage before the show because I didn't want to make him any more nervous. Finally, the show starts and they have this song called Peace of Mind that has a big signature guitar in the beginning of it. And he's also playing guitar. He's going to play guitar and sing for this. And he comes out, sold out amphitheater, and his guitar doesn't work. And he hits it and there's nothing. And I'm like, God. They jump in. There's 3 guitar players in that band. They jump in. It all works out. Within the first thing, he's got 10,000 people with their hands in the air. They're clapping, they're singing, and he carries the whole show. And he ends up becoming the singer of Boston. Fast forward that long story. But he becomes this new singer of Boston. So crazy in that, I don't know, that's not really crazy. That's just it's crazy to me to have purchased a Boston record, to have gone to a Stryper show and now seeing the singer for Stryper in Boston. And people, what's funny, people a lot ask me, like, what does a manager do? And I think about stories like that. And people have asked me, were you the reason he became the singer of Boston? Did you make this happen? No, I didn't. Sort of like all great artists, he made it happen. If he'd have sucked, this would not happen. If he would have not been up to the level of what was needed, this would not happen. But what I did as a manager, I didn't even see it as an opportunity. I just wanted to share, hey, Michael, there's this place where people are posting about the singer. I know he meant a lot to you. Maybe you want to share your thoughts. And this was sort of pre-Facebook a little bit, kind of pre-Facebook, but message boards were still big and it was on a message board. And so that's really all I did is connect the dots between those two and know that. And that's kind of what a manager does, is sees all these moments happening at once and knows which ones you should be paying attention to. But no, I didn't make it happen. Just like, people always ask me this too, like, did you get them their record deal? Not really. They got their record deal. They wrote brilliant songs and they made brilliant music. I introduced them to the record label, but great music always wins is my point. Make brilliant music. In other words, the theory is, and the thought is, if I could just find the right manager, I'd get the record deal. That's not how it works. You find the right manager because you have brilliant music. Or maybe you find the right manager and together you help create great music. But you become successful ultimately because of great music, not because of somebody's connections. The connections definitely help get you there once you have the great music. But all the connections in the world is not going to make a song great.
Yep, 100%. Last couple questions here. So you have 2 kids and you manage about 10 acts and you do festivals and promoting. So how do you, especially with the kids piece, how do you make all of that go being a super busy manager?
Man, I love my kids, and it's really kind of easy. I always just put them first. And I've created a roster of artists who understand that. I mean, when I'm thinking about going to a show or traveling, first thing I do is check the family calendar and I check the school calendar. And I clear that before I decide to travel. And that's really what I do. I'm going to look back and there's going to be no regrets because I will have not missed milestones for my kids. And I have artists that understand that and support that, and that's been great. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's not as hard as it might seem because I just always put them first.
That does make things easier when you know what goes first.
Yep. Yeah.
So last thing, how do you balance your work as a manager with working with people who are reaching out to you through our platform, artistmanagers.io, who sponsored this podcast? What's been the way that you kind of make that work?
Yeah, I have to carve out time for both. I mean, certainly I've built this business on managing the careers of artists, but I got into this business because I love helping artists. I love helping, man, when you and I were coming up in Dayroom in 9811 and in the mid-90s, how great would it have been to have a place where we could go talk to managers and learn about the business? And maybe even get one of them. I don't know, whatever. Form a relationship with them, create a network. Just thinking back. And even now I met a kid the other day that had millions of followers and streams. And he was in Nashville and doing all the right things. And he said, I just can't meet a manager. I don't know how to meet a manager. He had met me on artistmanagers.io and we've struck up a relationship. And, it's amazing how hard it is to meet managers. So I just love being able to meet artists and help them navigate the next steps. So I carve out time for that. I carve out time for my clients and the kids. And that's my life.
That sounds like a pretty good one. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. And any last bits of advice you want to share?
This sounds cliche, and you hear it a lot, but keeping yourself authentically you, both as a person and as a musician, is going to be your key to success. Maybe you would not be surprised, but I'm surprised at the number of people that come into my office and say, I just want to be a singer. I just want to make it big. I don't really care if I sing country or pop or what. That does nothing for me or the rest of the industry. Know who you are. Know what you want to do, love what you want to do, be proud of what you want to do, and do it authentically. It'll come through.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Michael, thank you, buddy. Good seeing you.
Yeah, likewise. Our next guest will be Suzanne Koga, artist manager for 4-time Grammy winner and 14-time Grammy nominee Roberta Flack. If you enjoyed today's podcast, feel free to send me an email at hello@artistmanagers.io. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you next time. Thanks.